welcome to Afternoon Tea. This is the name I have given this kind of little mini series of us reacting to articles and just stuff that goes on throughout the day. I've got my cup of tea. Because Afternoon Tea works in two ways. Hello, Dash Cable. Literally, just before I was going to start this, my case of girl power arrived. So if chat is nice and good, then we will open a couple of those up as well after we have a look at the articles. But all it takes is one bad egg and you get no box openings. I will make you wait. So let's go over a refresher of what we were told last week. So when we look at yesterday's article, we're a little bit more inclined into the context of what we're going to be looking at. So we were looking at the mental load of the game, how it impacts new players, how intense it can be, but from the aspect of the game setup. Now remember, this initial article did not mention enhances, responses, anything to do with the actual interactions and back and forth of the game. It was purely on the setup of the game and how many cards you had in hand and how many foundations you were building. And the aim was to fix this, and with the next article we're going to take a dive into some tactics to help bridge the gap between making Universus more accessible to new players while still being challenging to veterans. So hopefully this article will address that. We'll address how they make Universus, how they will be changing the game to make it more accessible to newer players whilst also keeping in mind veterans. So we have design game article, designing UVS, evergreens and reminder text. This is done by Bill Stark, director of game design, and designing UVS, evergreens, and reminder text. Last week I introduced the big challenge the game design teams have been having working on solving problems of the past several years in Universus, building a game that is approachable to new players while still having fun for long-term players. We talked about the concept of mental load and how too much of it can turn new players away, preventing a game from realizing its full potential. We also talked about how streamlining the game too much can alienate your dedicated fans who have been with you for years. Today I'm going to talk about some tools that will allow us to serve both needs at the same time. Immediately, I don't like the tone of that first paragraph because I know it happens a lot, but it's just an ick for me. That was not a conversation. That last article was you saying. It wasn't we also talked about, it was I talked about. This isn't a group project. This wasn't, we didn't have any input on this. This is Bill telling us something. We're not talking about it, if that makes sense. If this had read last week, I went over this, or I went into the team's feelings about this, but it is trying to. It may not be intentional, it may just be reading too much into it, but it feels pseudo manipulative into going, well, we've talked about this and you're on board with it as well. It feels very. It might just be trauma from my own upbringing where my mother used to do this a lot. It's like, oh, but we talked about this. No, you talked at me about this. I did not get to input. That is not a conversation. That is you telling me something. That is not us talking about it. But that's semantics. Defining terms. Before I dive into concepts, today we will need to define some terms so we are starting from the same place of understanding. When I talk about evergreen mechanics, I am referring to mechanics that show up regularly within the game and could be considered a permanent part of the landscape. These include powerful, EX, throw, that have been in nearly every set since they were first introduced, and they were key tools in what made the game. Hi, Matt. They differ from dedicacious abilities or mechanics, but I'll save that for another day. Okay, cool. I get that the evergreen ones, but there are also evergreen abilities that were taken away, like reversal and multiple, and then multiple came back as echo. in some kind of form. Deciduous. I don't. English is hard. Not even English. That's the problem. But yeah, got it. Cool. Thank you, Matt. Always green. Teaching someone to play a new game, you need to introduce them to a lot of unfamiliar concepts. Doing this increases mental load. You need to get a new term, mate. Really. And doubling down on mental load is really bad. You could have just been like increase it. Doing this increases the strain. Doing this increases the strain. Doing this increases the threshold of learning. You don't need to keep going back on mental load. God damn it. Which is both thrilling but risky. Too much as we looked at previously. No, we didn't look at it. You told us about it. We didn't look at anything. This wasn't a back and forth discussion, Bill. This was you saying, this is how I feel from what I've been told. There's been no community sort of like conversation about this, apart from to ridicule the use of mental load relentlessly. Players get overwhelmed. Too little and they get bored. We want to land on just the right amount for a challenge. As we covered in the last article, a human's short-term memory when they're learning new things can hold about 5 to 7 pieces of information. Okay, again, short-term memory refreshes every 15 to 30 seconds. 5 to 7 pieces is based on very limited research, and short-term memory isn't working memory is what they call it now. We want double down on short-term memory again. So yeah, working memory, but the idea behind it is to get them interested. If they're only holding 5 to 7 pieces of information, you don't need to worry about the massive. This is just about getting people introduced to the game and allowing their somatic and I forgot the other name. Not mechanic. Muscle memory. Episodic. There we go. Yeah, so basically it's getting them interested in the game, so they play the game, so they practice the game, so the episodic and somatic memory take over. And when I'm sure you'll go into it because we've got reminder text mentioned that you don't need reminder text. If you are new into the game, you get stun. But if you know stun is going to be a big thing, as mentioned in the previous article, you commit it to long-term memory, which means after that 30 seconds has passed, you have committed it. And you may not remember it instantly, but the more you play the game, the more you get it. You should not be teaching new players how to play with complex decks. That's just bad demoing. But let's move on. Once that bucket gets full, not a bucket. That is not how the human brain works. That is not how the human brain works. It pushes out other information. It's not a bucket that gets filled. It is a tube that keeps going. I feel like someone just watched a certain magical index and went, "That's science." No, that's not science. Even saying in the show, that's not how brain works. Once one game falls, you'll need to either commit something to long-term memory for quick recall, or forget about something to make space for a new piece of information. Again, the human brain works so quickly. That's not how it works. What's powerful when introducing a new card game concept is helping players quickly commit to that long-term memory, bring them up to new concepts. One of the powerful tools we use is called evergreen mechanics. Okay, no, yeah. Was at the edge of the right show. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, the short-term memory, long-term memory, sort of like only having those two, because again, you're not committing it to long-term memory. You're committing it to your episodic memory, something you've learned by doing it repeatedly. The same thing as driving, swimming, riding a bike. It is episodic memory. It's something you pick up and it becomes second nature. It's the Goku versus Vegeta argument. You get a lot from the original Dragon Ball Z, where Vegeta went into the hyperbolic chamber and wanted to get to the highest power level as quickly as possible and keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing. Episodic memory, semantic memory are more in tune with muscle memory. Everyone's heard of muscle memory. It's where you just do something, and you can, and yeah. Have you ever like tried to walk somewhere new, and then got undistracted and ended up walking towards like a shop or a school or a friend's house because you're walking, your brain gets distracted, but your legs remember, your brain subconsciously remembers this is a direction to somewhere we usually go, so we walk there. When I walk with Flynn to theatre school on Saturdays, occasionally we both end up just walking to school because it's along the same way, and we have a little laugh like, oh, we've done it again, because we'll be having a chat, we'll be having fun, because it's a walk. But yeah, autopilot, and that is what you do with games like this. It's developing a skill. And to go back to the Dragon Ball Z analogy, Vegeta and Trunks go into the hyperbolic chamber, and they aggressively try to go deeper into the Super Saiyan form to find a deeper level to it, and basically that puts extra strain on their bodies, and they don't actually learn anything. He gets the new form Super Saiyan 3, but it puts so much stress on his body that he's not able to maintain it. He's not able to actually master it. Whereas Gohan and Goku go into it, and Goku goes, we're going to try to maintain Super Saiyan form as long as possible. And we're going to keep increasing it, we're going to keep increasing it, we're going to keep increasing it. And we're going to increase our endurance and get our bodies and our brains used to this kind of power. And they come back out of the hyperbolic chamber after essentially a year, and they're able to converse and act normally whilst maintaining this immense power of the Super Saiyan form. And that is episodic memory. That is teaching your body, your brain, your environment of your body to sustain this new information. And that is what you gain through skills. When you start a job, when you start anything new, it takes you longer. You are longer at it, you are slower at it, you need help with it, and you need to remind yourself. When it comes to coding, comes to driving, you need to learn, you need to read up. But the more you do it, the faster you go. The more you get used to it, the more you can expand and you can look at different aspects. When I'm video editing now, I used to have to drag and I used to have to look up things, and now I can literally sit there and I can just type in the numbers of where I want these cards to go and how I want them to move. And that is all part of getting reps. It's the same with decks. It's why the best players can pick up pretty much any deck and just play it outright, because they've got the reps, they know the mechanics, they know how other ones go, how the game's supposed to flow. And that is what I tell people when they're looking to get into this game. It's a very easy game to learn because the simple interactions of this game is I punch you, I attack you, block, I attack you, block, I attack you, block, you attack, I block, you attack, I block, you attack, I block. That is the basics of the game. It is when you go deeper and deeper into it that it becomes a lot harder to master because of the intricacies of how those interactions actually go down. So it's an easy game to learn, it's a really hard game to master. And you master it through reps. I said this last week when I was talking about my Dabby 1 run in 2022. You had people on the commentary team like Sam Tate and Andrew Holder who were literally saying, yeah, I've seen Brett playing on Discord, I've seen like the games. He's got hundreds of games in with this character. It's not a surprise he's doing well with it. And that's like any skill. You need to practice it, and the more reps you get in, the more you learn. But it's not about committing it to long-term memory. I can commit anything to long-term memory, it doesn't mean I understand it. And using semantic and episodic memory, not only do I learn what stun is or what powerful is, I learn the interactions in the ear of when is best to use it. It feels like the article is about demo products and people assumed it was about that's what I'm kind of going from here. It's because the article was the first article was worded in such a way that is what they kind of said. It wasn't if they just said, "Oh, we're talking about demo and introducing people to the game," or stuff like that. And yeah, you can build it. You can literally build in stuff. Minecraft is a great example. But you don't learn to play it. Yeah, but you don't learn to play it with the cards that make a computer with it. Yeah. So yeah, I can understand. I understand where Bill's coming from with things like stun are integral for new players to get their head around because they exist everywhere. But I'm not going to keep saying mental load. I'm just going to keep making jokes about it. The strain that introducing new players to a lot of mechanics very quickly is correct. Bill is correct on that point. Again, just like the first article, the core of the article is correct. It's just a very convoluted way that it's been put. Evergreen mechanics, of course, are very important. They exist in all card games. But it's not about just going, oh, we need to get people excited about the game so they commit it to long-term memory. No, you need to get them excited about the game so they play the game and they commit it to the episodic memory. The first time you play Piercing Dagger Strike, you would need to learn what the ability stun is. However, the next time you see they see the ability stun, it serves as a familiar point of reference to make a player feel comfortable about their knowledge of the game. They can commit to memory that they don't have to recall it again. On many other cards, contrast to a world where there are no evergreen mechanics and each card has unique keywords that require every player to memorize every single. No! Where's that come from? that last sentence. What do you mean? I guess, but it's not like you need to remember every single new card that you see. You need to be aware of interactions. But if I see my opponents playing Toga 4, I don't need to essentially worry about spell cards or many actions. I can rule out a lot of the stuff that my head is trying to work out what this deck is going to be playing. On the other side of this, yes, just showing, you just understanding what stun is great. It's a familiar point of reference because lots of cards have stun. But to the same extent, that does not mean you know when to use that ability. Because if you just go, oh, this has got stun, I know what stun does, let's go stun. It's like, okay, but my opponent may have something that interacts with stun. I need to be aware of that. And that's not a keyword ability, that's an ability on the card, which we're going to get into. On that point, when I was learning the game in the first week, we had to constantly look up keywords, which would be for. I get that, and especially on the characters we have now, where everything before Jetburn now has keywords, and those keywords are not on there. And characters you would expect to have keywords like Nezu don't have pro hero, even though he is a pro hero. Characters like Dabby 1 do not have League of Villains, although you would expect them they would. Characters like Kurogiri have Nomu. It is. I understand where they're coming from there, but that is a change that they came up with that affected every other set. They could have just as easily gone and taken the bullet and gone, yeah, no, this is a new thing we're doing. It applies to none of the older sets. Suck it up. And again, you don't need to commit the ability to memory because you get the recall. You put it in your episodic memory because you've played it before, you're playing it again, you get that recall. It doesn't have where there are no evergreen mechanics and every card had unique keywords that require every player to memorize every single new card that they see. What a burden. Hey! We didn't say mental load! We said burden! Woo! Hey! So, this is why consistent art on cards is very important. Because a lot of players, myself included, will recognize a card from its art. So we'll know what the abilities do, but we won't remember a card by name, we won't remember a card by its abilities. We'll see a card's art, and then our brain will go, click, this is this card, these are the abilities you need to look out for. Even then, there are still some abilities that you completely forget. This week, I forgot that Hawk's Feather has a static ability. I removed one with a Deception Dagger. It stayed removed. I didn't. I completely forgot it had a static ability. My opponent is fairly new. Did not have a static memory. I forgot you. No, it's a big thing. Yeah, back when I played Magic, it was a big thing, and it's why alt arts are cool, but they're kind of more detrimental to the game. You remember a lot from the art of a card, and if two cards share similar art, it becomes a real pain. I'm just gonna have a sip of tea. So that's why I'm editing round 2 of my local qualifier for Monday, and my opponent was playing things like Permanation and Combat Decisions. I did not remember their names when they were playing them. I was going over the footage and I saw the art and I was like, oh, that's Combat Decisions, that's Permanation. I was like, I don't know how I remember that, but I do. Because of episodic memory, because I have picked it up through essentially osmosis, through exposure to these cards. And that is how players should be committing. What's missing from here is not only do you learn evergreen abilities and cards by playing them, you learn by having them played against you as well. And that is also very important. I learn more interactions by seeing my opponents do them than I learn from doing them myself. There are a lot of things, a lot of combos like the Struggling with Studies and Blue Flame Torment combination that I've come up with, but a lot of stuff gets pointed out to me when I'm playing games, and I go, that's a really cool interaction, and then you can build from there. Same when you're learning the game. You learn by exposure. If you just sit there looking at cards, you go, oh, this is what they all do, and you might make a couple of connections, but it's not the same as actually having it played against you. You get that, for semantic memory, you get that emotional attachment, you get that initial shock to your system. The first time you get deadlocked, and you go, okay, I was built to 11, and your opponent goes, oh cool, I have a deadlock ability, and you go, what's a deadlock? And you get that shock, and you become more vigilant, more aware, because you've had this shock to your system of what is this new ability I don't know of, and you commit it, and you learn about it, and you go, okay, I need to not do that again. So it's not just about what you play, it's about what's played to you. And yeah, Matt, you're not alone. It is 100% about art, about keeping art as well. I will say this current paragraph reads like a Yu-Gi-Oh player. We don't read what we do. They just do a thing. Yeah, I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh has got to that point where if you both sort of sat there playing solitaire, hoping to kill the other one. But evergreen ability is very important. I would love to talk to Bill and be like, okay, cool. So if evergreen abilities are very important, when are we getting reversal back? When are we getting? We've got multiples. We don't need to worry about that. But also, the game evolves. Ranged used to be a keyword ability. Reminders. Well, everyone knows about reminders. Evergreen mechanics are powerful because they reduce mental load. But we can go further in helping new players that some of those mechanics do in the first place. To this, we use what's called reminder text. Reminder text is not for flavor, but not a specific rules text, but it helpfully clarifies what rules text means. In this example, piercing dagger strike, I left off in the first image you left off the reminder text, but here's the reminder text for stun. You find it in your challenger series. Yes. And a even better example of that is gonna let me come here. Is where are you? Come up, come down. Well, that's Melo. What about, yeah, boom. Even better example, we've got rapid speed slash. It has two lots on there. One explaining responses and enhances, and showing breaker and EX. Reminder text doesn't take away too much of the card, but breaks down what both of these evergreen abilities do. That would have been, to me, would have been a better example than Pierce and Dagger Strikes. It's a main set card, whereas Challengers, here's what it looks like when you open it in your Challenge series. Now, to me, that has opened up a little like clicky moment in my head of why do Challenger cards need reminder text? They're supposed to be intermediate to competitive decks. They don't need reminder text. I can understand main set cards, I can understand clash decks, and definitely demo decks. But if Challengers are meant to be for intermediate players, why do they have a reminder text? That's just popped in my head. Reminder text is important because it can teach new players what evergreen mechanics. No, that hurts. What an evergreen mechanic is because they are pick up and play decks. Yeah, but you know what I mean. They're targeted more at. They're not targeted at new players, but yeah, that's fair. Especially for Critical Role, where people are just going to pick it up because it's Critical Role. Helping them commit to memory. Again, going on with the memory stuff. You don't need to keep bringing it all back to memory, mate. Helping them commit to memory, but also making it okay if they haven't. It's right where they need it when they need it. On cards, ask on cards, ask them if they know what it is, and seeing it explained repeatedly through reminder text allows us to handhold a player and teach them through repetition. Our general guidelines for prioritizing reminder text are: reminder text appears when there's room for it on the card alongside the rules text, and is helpful to the player to have it present. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Especially on like Ryuku cards, especially Ryuku 1 and Ryuku 2, where they have no abilities or one ability. That is a great place for reminder text. Apart from Ryuku 1 cards don't have abilities, but Ryuku 2, where they can have one ability, that makes sense. Showing stuff on there for keywords, that's awesome. When we get in more of these blank sort of attacks that have just, when we get in these blank attacks with powerful 3, explain powerful 3 in there, makes sense. My text most frequently appears frequently on commons and uncommons. These are cards placed the most when opening boosters. Now, limited play, making them the best opportunity to teach us what evergreen mechanic is. Also, because that refers back to point 1, where most rares, ultra rares, secret rares don't have the space because they usually have a lot of abilities. Reminder text appears sometimes on rares. These appear frequently enough. Still be a great teaching opportunity, but rares tend to have more text on them at at lower rarities, leaving less space for romantics. Yeah, that's what I just said. Romantics appears less frequent on ultras and secret rares because they have a maximum need for coolness and typically less room on cards for reminder text. Reminder text typically does not appear on character cards because there isn't usually space. We'll happily include it if there's both space. What? How many characters have got evergreen abilities? I guess if it says you give something stun one, you could say this is what stun one does, which is kind of cool. Every main set should have at least one common that has each keyword. Yeah, no, every card game, every game should have a way. I mean, even in video games, you still get the tutorial stuff like that, and you get like the help tips when you go on it. I love the fact Inasa has refresh, and it's the only card to have ever actually been given refresh. I don't think I've seen refresh done since. I love reminder text of Mr. Brave because chances are that card's going to rotate before Mr. Brave even comes into the game. In the next installment, we'll be talking about how we use vanilla and French vanilla cards to help reduce mental load. Stop, please. While keeping the game streamlined, we'll see you there. Okay. So this article alleviates a little bit of the stress I was feeling, because I was feeling fairly stressed that they were planning to change the way the game was played, because the initial article didn't talk about enhancers, didn't talk about actual abilities. It talked about mental load in how many cards you had in hand and how many cards were being played. And I think that's what a lot of people immediately jumped onto, like, what are you on about? You've not mentioned any of the actual toughness of the game. You've just spoken about the initial couple of turns, saying it's a lot for new players to handle. I think Sam might have hit the nail right on the head in talking about this is just an approach to demo stuff, but at the same time, it's the fact they keep frequently talking about the older players as well says to me it isn't just going to be aimed at new players in demo. If that makes sense. I think the wording on these articles, especially mental load, is not the strongest it could be. There's a lot of ways this could have been addressed better, especially when you talk about the mental burden. The easier way, better, and it emphasizes that it is tough that the game puts on players. Because, yeah, this is a very, very hard game to master. There's a lot of information coming at you. And as we've talked about previously, the demo kits need to be fun. They need to be interactive. But they need to be simplistic. And the new Attack on Titan ones look really, really good as well. If we're talking about ML for only new players, sure, I'm on board with that. But as you mentioned, if that's the case, it's about, yeah, exactly. Oh, that would be really, really cool as well. I've heard a lot of people just talk, so I usually try to go into these blind, so I haven't got any pre-formed biases. But I've seen a lot of people on Facebook just basically saying this article said nothing, and it's saying a lot. It's just, it's kind of like here's point A, here's point B, and it's going up and down, rather than just going, this game is difficult. We need more cards that are just plain evergreen abilities. But yeah, it didn't say nothing. To a lot of experienced players, to a lot of people have been playing card games for a very long time. They read it as keywords are important and they should be in every set. And here's reminder text. And reminder text is important for new players. Like, yeah, we already know this. It's like, cool. But does everybody know this? And that was kind of the key behind it. Unlike the last one, I don't think I can rant on about this for 2 hours. It's a simple and basic article. And I'm excited to see what happens next week. See if we get something a little bit different. But for me, it's pulled me back a little bit from the edge of they're going to kill the game. They're going to be like making us build one foundation a turn sort of thing. It's pulled me back away from the edge of going, oh, it was just very poor. The message was just very poorly conveyed. Long-term players, it feels like refresher cost. Yes, that's just it. There was nothing new said in here that people didn't know. It's just the way it's being said isn't the most efficient, and as card game players, efficiency and value are what we value most. So as it's like the doubling down on the short-term memory and the holding 5 to 7 pieces of information. It's like, yeah, if all that information comes at you like at one time, but human memory, the working memory. I'm not using short-term memory. Fuck that term. Working memory refreshes every 15 to 30 seconds. So, if you then just explain what stun is, how it works, and how it interacts, leave it 15 seconds. Then we explain that within the 15 seconds, and then just come up with them with new pieces of information, answer questions, and then you can just do it. You can literally. Yeah, this part, I don't know if it's meant to read that way, but just saying the human short-term memory can only hold on to 5 or 7 new pieces of information. It's like you've not put a time frame on that. It's like that 15 minutes, 15 seconds, 15 days. It's like you need to put on that going, oh, but it does refresh every 15 seconds. It does refresh on average every 30 seconds. So, in that 30 seconds, they need to either commit it to memory or just not have the interest to play. Watching another video on like the newer model of take out all the information that is important and afterward dump it stack. Taking all the information that is important, then afterward dump it again. Yeah, I mean, like the last one, the core of this article is this game is complex. Evergreen abilities are something that are consistent. I'm not even going to call it evergreen. That's a very magic term. Things like scry and death touch and double strike are very evergreen abilities in Magic. Keyword abilities, which is what we have, that are consistent throughout sets, is something that is something that's always existed because of this. And it feels like this is not something that we as players need to know. That design needs to be in there, but it's good that they did let us know at least. Yeah, RAM versus SSD. Yeah, exactly. How much space you have on your hard drive does impact your RAM, of course. That is why we do not teach. That's why we don't have many 5-year-olds playing this game, because they're still developing their SSD storage. But the younger players have a lot more SSD space and a lot more RAM, and that's why they scare me. And then as we get older, our storage fills up, our RAM starts to become outdated, and we all do tend to slow down. But no, I mean, this article was nowhere near as panicking as the last one. I really do think Bill needs to drop the mental load It's not cute. It's not funny anymore. And all you're doing is just going to research everyone there. Google is free, my friend. Get user thesaurus. Find something else. Burden. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at it in context. When was the last time you used mental load? Hand holding, projects. See, you put burden here. You could have just stuck with burden. Because I'm trying to find the concept of it. Yeah, you can use things like restrictions, burden. There's so many synonyms for load because it's a noun, a verb, and an adjective. So there's so many synonyms for it. I'm sure that they could have worked out something better. But to me, the core of this article is very well meaning. It's just it's not actually saying anything that our players want to know, and could have been worded more in a way of, when teaching new players, you need to be aware that the keyword mechanics are the most important because they're the ones that are going to be recognizable throughout the sets. And then moving on to, we'll talk about the other abilities later on, which is probably what we're going to get to. Vanilla cards. Vanilla cards are not something we really have in this game. I think those things like Delaware Smash are probably going to be what we refer to as French vanilla, where they only have one or two minor abilities. But we have got some vanilla cards, especially with the Ryukyu set. But I think I'm just gonna leave that there. This article wasn't, not to take away from Bill, but this article wasn't worth going this deep into. It's a fine article. It goes over what it needs to, and it does highlight that keyword abilities are very important for new players to learn, but there should be more of an emphasis on reps and mechanics and getting more used to the game rather than going, we need to emphasize keyword abilities to bring new players in and unlock Universus potential. I think Universus potential is not found in simplifying the game. It's found in defining more interactions. So, on Andrew Holder's Discord, we were talking about Chivalrous Thief. And Chivalrous Thief has an ability where you spend a momentum, your opponent is forced to spend 2 momentum, and your next taunt or slam attack gets +2 speed, +2 damage. And Chris Smith was arguing that if he gives an attack taunt with Easily Excited, it should trigger Chivalrous Thief. And I can understand that because you give the attack taunt, it's now your next taunt attack. But also, your next attack abilities check before the card is checked. So it goes, okay, this is an attack. It hasn't been checked yet. Does that count? And yeah, so that is a very complex question that even players who have been playing 16 years do not know the answer to, because either could be true. So the key to unlocking Universus potential is not in simplifying the game, it's in defining these interactions so that when we look at a situation like this, we can go, this is what happens. Because these complex interactions and niche, a bit of things that go down, are what players are building around. They're the kind of things that new players go, that's so cool that you can do that. How can I get into this game? They don't want to look at a game where someone's going, I place attack on a 5, stun 2. I'll give it speed. I'll give it damage. Send it. You know, they want to be like they want to see you go more like I place attack. I'll spend the momentum to make you discard momentum, and then we'll both add 1 card from discard to our hand. They want to see the crazy plays. They want to see these abilities that go, that's so cool. How did you come up with that interaction? The draw for me of Universus was in these complex interactions and in how every deck essentially has a multitude of builds. You can play the same character in so many different ways. No. But if you get too many Rakdos builds, such as Younger Toguro or Ojiro, the Izzet Guild mages get very annoyed. Izzet is a very powerful house of interactions, but we all can't be blue players. There are green players, and we see the green players are the ones that kind of take the big events. Look at Endeavor 3. I wouldn't call that an Izzet deck. I'd call that a nice beatdown deck. But Kevin Broberg's Midnight deck is probably closer to a blue-white deck. But yeah, so you know I'm coming across from there. Evergreen mechanics or keyword abilities are very, very important. But there was nothing said in here. I think next week's article, which goes over vanilla and French vanilla cards, is going to be very similar to this. So next week's tea time is probably going to be quite a bit shorter. If there even is one, I'm going to be in London. So if I can find time to set up and do like a mobile recording. I think the one after that, so the one that will be on June 6th, after we get this month's ban list, which is not going to be no changes because there's no data. That's when we might start getting into the nitty gritty of the actual card abilities, the Sidious ones. But that was really cool. But I'm going to call that one there. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to keep up with these afternoon teas for articles. And thanks to everyone that's been here.